Sahanavavatu Sahano bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
As we journey through the mind of the great King Janaka, who has realized the self and is now in wonderment of all that he is experiencing when he looks at the world from that point of being the self. He looks at his body, he looks at the world around, he looks at everything that exists in that world which is around, and considers all of them as mere illusions, who should be given only so much importance as needed and not more. Yesterday we also discussed the idea that though body is, sometimes we say body is not me or I am not the body, but we still tend to say body is nevertheless mine. And that again leads to an idea of preserving and protecting and providing for, which is fine as long as it is helping you on the spiritual path, but not beyond that. Excesses have to be absolutely avoided. Ati sarvatra varjayet. It is like putting the cart before the horse if we put too much of attention on the body in front of our spiritual progress. So many people have also taken to the path of tormenting their bodies to make sure that they do not engage too much with the body and the senses. But that is not the way. Body is just a vehicle. Vehicle is not the reason why one goes to meet with an accident. It's the driver who drives, who sits inside. And so mind has to be purified. All the actions are for purification of mind. Janaka's mind was purified. Therefore, he was able to experience all these great wisdom. Impure mind is incapable of experiencing all these. And they believe that everything is real, and so they keep running behind like chasing mirages. And they never get to drink a drop of water because there was no water in the first place. Likewise, the joys of the world are also appearing to be very real, but when you investigate thoroughly, you realize that they are also like parisians. They really don't truly give you the joy. It appears that it gives you the joy, but the joy is actually coming from inside you, not from the outside. The outside is a mere reflection of your inner self, inner joy. So if you are a happy person, even in difficult circumstances, you can be happy. And if you are a sad person from inside, even in happy situations, you become sad. How many people we have seen? They can never be joyful because in everything they find some mistake, some shortcoming, or some thing which is not nice. They're constant fault finders. They keep themselves always busy with negativity because their minds are negative. So even if you put them in a nice place with all the nice things, they cannot appreciate because they're so bitter inside that even if the best things are given to them, they cannot fully appreciate it because their minds are not pure. That's why Adi Shankaracharya says, Karmani Chitya Shuddhyartham. For all purification of mind only, actions have to be undertaken. And if any action is leading to impurity of the mind, like attachment and ego, then that action should be shunned. Because that is furthering the cause of your spiritual downfall by enhancing or cementing the existing ego and attachment towards things. So actions that are selfless in nature are to be undertaken. Those actions undertaken through the body are perfectly okay, permitted by the scriptures, permitted by dharma, because they will purify the mind. And that purification of mind will ultimately lead to the realization of the self. Yesterday I also told that, take care of your body only so much, don't overdo it. And that's why there are certain spiritual disciplines, yama, niyama, pranayama, pratyahara. These all are various spiritual disciplines that lead to the ultimate spiritual realization through asana, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. The Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali talks about 8 steps. Yama and niyama are the very first basics. Yama is the exercise of self-discipline. which is required to exist in a society. In a society, everybody needs to follow certain disciplines. If you don't follow the rules, then there'll be accidents. That is the reason why our rishis were very clever. They said there have to be certain behavioral standards, both in community and as in personal life. And so yama, niyama, pranayama and pratyahara, these are the four things in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra which are disciplines. The next four things are spiritual evolutions. Then you come to asana, certain pose you must undertake while meditating. Then pranaya, asana. Then dhyana, concentration of mind. Dharana, holding that mind in one place steadily. And samadhi, that is the ultimate transcendence of the mind. These are the things. But the four steps of yama, niyama, pranayama and pratyahara, which is regulation, moderation, is very important. I also was mentioning that one must eat in a limited way, yukta ahara viharasya, which is also a concept from our scriptures. Saying, yes, live in the world, but do not get overtly involved with the world. Just as much as needed, that's all you should take. Don't get extra engagements in the world. Don't take upon yourself. What is necessary is necessary. Beyond that, do not give it too much of importance. See, a king has to be living like a king. When a king walks in, everybody feels that a king has walked in, right? If he wears beggarly attires and not kept himself very well groomed or does not look dignified like a king, then nobody is going to pay respects to that king. They won't believe. So what happens? Janaka would dress up like a king every morning before coming to the office, that is his darbar, and he will sit on his throne, which is bejeweled, and he would be wearing all his ornaments, his silken garments and robes, and he will rule the kingdom like a king. He will pass judgments, he will pass verdicts, he will punish the wrong, he will reward the right, and do everything that is required to be a king, to be like the king. At the end of the day, when he's done with his duties, he will take off all his paraphernalia of the costume and the jewelry and everything and remove it, and he'll wear some plain cotton and would sleep on the floor and do his own austerities and sadhana. Again, when the sun rises, he would rise with the rising sun, and then he will dress up and become the king, and the whole day he would be behaving like the king. But by night, he is totally changed. He has given up everything. If you are not dressed well according to your position, they won't respect you. So dress is important. I'm not saying it's not important. Grooming is important, but only so much as per your need, as per your requirement. And if you do not have the detachment to get rid of it by evening, saying, "Hey, this is not who I am," then don't wear it, is what I tell. If Janaka is not capable of removing his crown at the end of the day, then he should not put down the crown in the morning. The Dhritarashtra could never remove his crown, right? He could never empty his chair, vacate his chair. So he should not be a king if be he cannot vacate the chair next day for a better person. Likewise, everybody has a role. According to role, one must behave. As students, you have a role and responsibility. Behave accordingly. Devotees have their own. Teachers and student or staff have their own. Maintain that kattu, bottu, juttu, whatever we maintain. It applies for boys, girls both. Your hairstyle, that is your juttu. Your hair dressing, that is your kattu. And bottu means that vibhuti dot that we put. Many people are very shy. I say some sign of your spiritual leanings are good. Be it jewelry, be it your vibhuti or whatever you wear as a mark of. If you don't have that in your tradition, it is a different matter. If it is there, please maintain that. I always encourage that. So these are some of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Just because you are not the body and body is also not yours, you don't abandon or neglect your body. It is still a vehicle, it is still a gift of God, it is still something that is infused with divinity and should be used only to that extent, not put to torture or not over pampered. So that is something that you must keep in mind. Our whole bondage is that we live with the desire to go on enjoying this body. We don't want to give up the body. That is our desire, is the reason for our bondage, is the last we heard. Now in page number 187, shloka number 23, it says, Aho bhuvana kallolaihi vichitraihi drak samuthitam mai ananta maham bodhau chittavate samudyate. A new analogy here. The analogy or the metaphor of an ocean. He says, Aho, again, that wonderment. He has realized another way of this truth. Bhuvana kallolaihi, this whole bhuvana, this whole universe. Kallolaihi, this is all like the waves on the ocean. Vichitraihi, in strange kind of ways, all kinds of ways. Drak samuttitam, and they emerge all of a sudden, not like slowly, but all of a sudden these waves emerge in this ocean of the universe. And what he says is that Mayananta Mahambhaudav, I am the great big ocean on which these waves are playing. Chittavate samudyate. Chitta means mind, vata means wind. So winds of mind, when they are blowing, samudyate, these waves emerge from this ocean that I am. Now we will break it and understand. His imagination is, imagine the ocean. And when there are huge winds, you will see big waves coming. We all know that. Stormy oceans are there, stormy seas are there. Because of huge winds. By itself, water does not have the habit of jumping up and down. It is the wind that is pushing the water. So the waves are formed. So also, when winds are very strong, waves are formed, big waves are formed. When winds are less, very silent, the ocean is very quiet. We all know that. So he says, when I look around at the world, what do I realize? I realize that I am that ocean of consciousness. The whole world is made of consciousness. There is no two ways about it. By now we know the basic fundamental building block of this whole universe is our consciousness, our awareness. On that, multiple things are happening. Like on the screen, multiple pictures are displayed. With the same gold, multiple ornaments are being made. With the same clay, multiple potteries are being made. Likewise, from the same consciousness, the whole world emerges and disappears into it. How? Like waves emerge out of ocean and disappear into the ocean again. But how do they emerge? What is the reason? Why do they suddenly emerge? Drak means suddenly how do they emerge? Because there is wind. When suddenly winds increase, the waves increase. This is how the world operates. He has realized it now in his understanding of the truth. He says, I am like the great ocean of consciousness. Waves is the world. And they emerge and fall according to the winds of the mind. Now, what is the wind of the mind? Thought is the wind of the mind. When a thought emerges, emotions emerge. Then emotions emerge, a reaction emerges about those emotions. Suddenly your pure, absolute, motionless consciousness becomes so emotional and also becomes full of restlessness, agitation. That is what is happening around me. He's figured that out. That why these emotions and why all this world and all the things that happen around is because my mind is the reason for it. Whenever the mind gets activated and it entertains a thought, good or bad, then these waves of emotions start emerging and coming up and down. Think of many people say, "Oh, I have realized the truth, and I'm very peaceful. I'm very peaceful." But suddenly, one old memory comes in your mind, and then all the emotions associated with memory re-emerge. All of a sudden, suddenly in 1 second's time, you have become so emotional and so nostalgic about something that had happened maybe 50 years ago, because that one thought of in the mind has raised that wave in your consciousness. Otherwise yours was a calm sea, you were peacefully sitting, but one thought, you met somebody, one attachment, infatuation, immediately an emotion starts. And that doesn't take time, it happens just like that, in a trice, as if suddenly winds are blowing and suddenly the waves are rising. This is what the world is all about. The way my mind reacts, that is the way I experience the world. My mind has its own way of doing things. Why? Because manas is about sankalpa vikalpa, we said. Mind is a bundle of thoughts, memories, and this is what creates emotions in us. So the more thoughts you have, the more waves you will be there in your ocean. That is what I am trying to convey. That's why the first process is to get rid of as many thoughts as possible, especially the difficult ones. Like you couldn't forgive somebody for something that happened in the past. Every time that thought comes, your heart will churn like an ocean. Huge waves will form, a tsunami of emotions. And suddenly you will lose all your discretions and you will get back into that emotional state of disturbance and you will not be able to deal with your life anymore properly. That is why get rid of as many thoughts, because every thought is a wind and every wind will raise an emotion. In the sense, every thought will raise an emotion. Another wave will form and the sea will be disturbed. So reduce as many thoughts as possible. Keep good thoughts. Thoughts are required to run in the world, but at least reduce and keep as good, pure, positive, sattvic thoughts, so that the winds are not as strong or as stormy, and your sea is still manageable. It means your emotions are manageable, and you can still retain your peaceful demeanor of the self without getting too agitated. That is why too much of engagement with anything will cause emotions. And emotions, Swami used to say, was loose motions. Used to say emotions are loose motions, no control. Once it comes, can anybody control somebody with a bad stomach? They have to just rush to the loo because they can't sit there. It's very risky. Like that, emotions are very risky. Once you get emotional about anything, you get into trouble. It disturbs your inner peace. Both sides of emotions, the happy emotions and the sad, both emotions disturb. Happy emotions are also creating waves inside your consciousness. Suddenly you're excited, jumping all around, talking too much, singing, that all kinds of activity because you're happy. You want to express that joy. And similarly, when you become sad, the other side of emotions, into the extent of self harm. People go off to that extent. They want to destroy themselves because they're so emotionally trapped in that. So it's like that. If it's a calm sea, your boat is going well. But if it's a stormy one, you don't enjoy the ride, first of all, and on top of that, your survival itself becomes a big issue. So emotions should not take over our discretion. That is the most important thing. Even emotional about God is not okay. When God becomes your emotional reason to be with God, not a spiritual reason, emotional reason, then you will also struggle because you would expect God to be the way you want God to be. You want to fit Him into a mold because that is what suits your emotions. But God is not going to be like that. Then what is going to happen? You will feel hurt and terrible and dejected. Because spirituality was not the reason of your connection with God. Emotions were the reasons. You were a helpless, hopeless, hapless person, and then you wanted somebody to fill that void. Suddenly you got hold of one form or name of God. Now you became so emotional about it that you can't get rid of it now. That becomes your baggage. You don't grow. So emotions are always a trouble. Though good emotions, I always say, is better than bad emotions. But net, you should not have these emotions. I'm not saying you should not be sensitive to other people. I'm not saying you become cold to other people. I'm not becoming people like stone hearted. No, you are kind to others. You are compassionate to others. You are nice to others. You're concerned about others. You're sensitive to others. But you're not helplessly emotional, where you just can't control yourself. You can't discriminate. You don't go that far. That is what is this samsara, what he's saying. This whole wind of mind is these emotions. And the more emotions you store within you, the more potential of such storms in the future. That's why I said the biggest, deepest emotion that troubles us is not being able to forgive. That is the most difficult emotion. All other emotions are okay. I had a good friend. Now that we are not in touch, I wish I could meet him. Fine, that is a good emotion. But when you have emotions which are bitter, where you're holding back in your heart against somebody you have not forgiven, that is worser emotion, because every time that memory comes, the whole sea of consciousness becomes stormy, and you can't do anything right. You can't be too emotional about it. People want to hold on to this body and not let it go. I've seen people lying in ventilators for months and years sometimes, but they don't want to let go of their bodies. That attachment, that is emotion, and emotions are very, very dangerous. Anything that you're emotional about, or like having emotions about a car, is not a bad emotion. It's not that it's hurting somebody's interest. Having an angry emotion, a hateful emotion, revenge, it is all bad emotions. But this is a good emotion, yet it churns the ocean within your chest. You feel that agitation and the loss of peace because a thought has occurred, a wind has started, and that has stirred up the entire ocean of peace that you already had. So, any desire which is emotional will lead to pain, will lead to at least loss of peace. So, he is realizing how the world works. This is how it works, and it happens very sudden. He says, Drak samuthitam. It happens all of a sudden. You don't have time to discriminate also whether I should entertain this or not. It just happens like that. It is lying somewhere hidden in you, and suddenly any little cue can trigger that reaction. And it happens all of a sudden. As Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita, Atakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha anichannapi varashnaya baladiva niyojitaha. Why do people commit sins in this world? Anichannapi varashnaya, O Krishna, though they don't want to commit that, they don't want to do the wrong thing, still as if forced to do the wrong thing, under some influence, they commit wrong and do wrong things. Why does it happen? Niyasa. Ata kena prayuktayam, what makes it happen? Papam charati purusha, people make mistakes. Anichannapi vashne, they don't want to do it, they know it is not good to do it, yet they end up doing it. Baladiva niyojita, as if been forced to do it, as if it is they're helpless in front of it. What happens? And Krishna unveils to Arjuna. He reveals the secret. He says, Kama yesha, krodha yesha, rajoguna samudbhavaha, mahashano mahapapma, viddhaya enam iha vairinam. He says, these two, kama and krodha, the desire and the anger, they come just like that, like a sudden storm which rises without notice. All of a sudden they come. Kama yesha, krodha yesha. Why? Because it is because of the rajoguna in people. Rajoguna is selfish guna. It wants for itself everything. It is that selfish energy in us, which wants everything for itself. And if it is only working to satisfy our ego and attachments. Rajoguna only works for satisfying our personal ego and attachments. Sattva works for satisfying the good, the godly things. And Tamoguna, again I say, it does not even want to have any ambition. It is just does not want to do anything. That is Tamoguna. Rajoguna wants to do, but only for one's own sake. And Sattva still wants to do, but for everybody's sake. That is the difference of action that happens in three gunas. So Rajoguna is the reason why these desires and anger come. Because if desires are fulfilled, there is no anger. If desires are not fulfilled, then anger. So this is the reason, and they come like a sudden storm. Uninformed. Therefore, people don't have even time to think and react. By the time they're already swept. See, when a storm is there, in our country it is far less. But once in Raipur hospital, a huge storm came because it was an open ground, and winds are very, very strong. It is a plateau. And the hospital is just standing alone in front of, in a large, vast, empty land. So that storm came. It blew off all the doors, windows, the glass entrance, everything broke. And it threw it meters away. That kind of a storm. And nobody expected that because it was a mild which was blowing just like that. But those huge empty lands there, suddenly it can gather pace and momentum and become a storm. A dust storm. And then it just broke all the things. Luckily no patient was harmed. But it was a big lesson for us that this also can happen. So we had to fortify everything better. But I saw that suddenly the storm picks up without you realizing. Like cloud burst in Himachal and other things, now people are suffering. Suddenly the cloud burst. Last moment everything seemed nice and okay. And suddenly a cloud has burst somewhere up there in the mountains and the whole of that is flowing down and houses and people and cars and every trees, everything is, washed away. It happens so suddenly that there is no time to react and respond to it. You're just carried away. Likewise, my emotions, my mind is the wind that suddenly blows and causes the rise of emotions and all these experience of the world, good, bad, ugly. Otherwise, I am a peaceful, calm sea. Without mind, I am a peaceful sea of consciousness. Mind enters, then enters the winds, and once the wind comes, the sea becomes stormy. All the waves of emotions rise and fall, and that is what is happening around me. Oh, I have discovered it. Eureka, I have found it. That is how it works here. So that is the discovery of Janaka, which we all know, but this is Janaka's first-hand experience. So he is so excited about what he has just discovered. He continues in the same tone, 189th page, 24th shloka. He says, Mayananta Mahambodhau, I am the great big ocean. Chittavate prashamyati. When these winds of chitta, winds of mind prashamyati, they calm down. When there is no wind at all, it becomes a peaceful, non-stormy sea. What happens that? Abhagya jiva vanijau. Abhagya. Abhagi means unfortunate. So abhagya, due to unfortunate circumstances or misfortune, jiva vanijaha. Who is jiva vanija? Jiva is, that individual soul. That's an illusion again, that I exist as a soul. And vanijaha means a tradesman, a trader, a businessman. In old times, business people who used to have sea trades, right? They used to take their ships and go to other lands, relationship where our merchants would go in their ships and go all the way to Middle East and go to the Eurasia and such lands, faraway lands up to Greece, Egypt, and they will sell what they sell and they will bring things from there too. So that is what happens when the seas are having winds. Winds means sail needs wind. Without wind, the ships don't move. So that also requires wind. But too much wind also, ships cannot survive. But only when winds are there, the ships can sail. Otherwise, very difficult to move in the ocean. So when good winds are there, that is why when I went to Cape Town, I call it Cape of Good Hope, South Africa. Because that is the time when from Atlantic Ocean you are transitioning towards Indian Ocean. That is the time when the winds change, and that's why all the ships used to sail eastwards or westwards according to that part of the year when the winds were convenient for their sailing. So people used to always travel during one part of the year towards west because winds were blowing this way. There was a nice tailwind, so they could go faster. And when they had to return, they again would wait for the winds to turn, and then they will sail back. So that is how the Cape of Good Hope is the place where the winds turn and people can sail easily from Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean and come here. Movements in the sea. The winds are the reason why ships move. That is when the winds are convenient and right, then tradesmen carry on with their business. The merchants go out to do their business. That is what happens. So he says, when your mind is absolutely peaceful, this jiva which you think exists and is busy in this business of giving and taking in this world. No, give something, take something. This whole world is about give and take. All the business it does and earns sometimes dukkha, sometimes sukha, sometimes profit, sometimes loss. This is a part of business, people. One day they'll be profitable, one day they'll make loss. So they go through these emotions of positive and negative. So he's comparing, it's a metaphorical comparison which says, when the winds are silent, there is no wind, sea is absolutely calm, these tradesmen unfortunately cannot continue with their business trades. Why? Because there is no supporting wind to help them move. If there are good winds, a travel journey can happen in probably a month. Same thing when there is no wind or there is headwind, would take 3 months in the sea. That is how people used to be very smart when to leave their country and when to return. And they must return within that time because winds will change and then they will not be able to return. They'll get trapped in another nation. They'll lose all that they have earned in spending to survive. So it was very, very well, planned for them. So he's saying, when my mind is calm, there are no winds in the sea. And the sailor or the businessman or the merchant, naval merchant, is unfortunately going to lose everything now. Why? Because there is no business now. He can't move his ship anymore. So he compares that, says, Abhagyat Jiva Vanijo, the tradesman of this Jiva, the individual soul, I and mine, unfortunately, Vinashwaraha gets destroyed. Destroyed doesn't mean the ship goes and sinks. It means his business gets destroyed. He has no reason to sail anymore. Why? Because there is no wind to support him to move forward. The consciousness has become so calm. So the idea is that till there is a thought in the mind, this business of I and mine, us versus them goes on. Profits and losses goes on. Happiness and sadness goes on. Good times and bad times goes on. As if this jiva is the trade merchant whose only job in the world is give and take, lose and gain, experience joys and sorrows. All that will end when there are no winds to sail the boat. That business itself cannot exist anymore. If there are no convenient winds, why would anybody go out in the sea? That is the idea, that when your mind has no desire, why would this jiva engage with the world? Why would you have to go through all these kinds of fulfillment of desires and struggle towards it? Nobody needs to do anything. You are peaceful as you are. That is the idea. That mind and the desires are the reason why we do anything in the world. If there are no desire, nobody needs to do anything in the world, isn't it? It's the desire which makes us work. Good desires make us do good work. Bad desires make us do bad work. But desires are the reason. And that is why even I say, for example, if we did not have a desire to build institutions and shelter people or give education, why would I have to work? Kimichan kasya kamaya shariram anusvanjaret. Why should you put your body to difficulty? For what sake? For what desire? If there is no desire, body need not undertake any difficulty at all. But we have to put. Why? Because we have good desires. What is the good desire? Let everybody grow. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu nirame. These are good desires. But good desires also require action. And that action requires effort. So if you have no desire, there is no effort. Nothing needs to be done in this world. Everything is good as it is. But even if you have a good desire like that of a jnani, jnani also must go to work. Why? Because he has a good desire to bring peace, harmony, and hope and succor to people. Like that, Janaka has to continue as a king and behave as a king because he has to maintain the kingdom and help those Agyanis to tide over their own issues. Like the boatsman, remember in the Shankaracharya's example it is. Swayam tirnaha bhiva bhavarnavam janana hetu nanyanapi tarayantaha. He has already crossed the river. But he comes back with the boat to help others also cross the river. That is the way of the Jnani. So Jnani also works, but he does not go through this profit loss of a jiva. I have earned something or I have lost something. Today I am happy, tomorrow I am sad. Those emotions don't affect the jnani because he does not have that kind of desire which is emotional. He has spiritual desire, but spiritual desires are good. They don't disturb you as much as emotional. So emotion is the reason why we all suffer in the world with all kinds of ups and downs. You understand that? So if there are no emotions and no desires of that emotional nature, you don't have to deal with this world and its vagaries. You can stay in the peaceful state of consciousness. But it is not given to all. Why? Because people are destined to do good or bad. Somebody has wrote to me, they told, you written everything is perfect. What is there to do? Kim karaniyam, kim akaraniyam, everything brahmamayam. Then why you are working, why everybody is working? I said, I am destined to do that. Adi Shankara was destined to do what he did. He was not supposed to build hospitals and schools. He was supposed to do Advaita Prachara. Ramana Maharshi was not supposed to build hospitals, schools, or run Annadanam. He was supposed to stay in his ashram, and whoever sought him his advice, he was supposed to give the advice. Was poverty not there during Ramana Maharshi's time? Were people not sick and desolate and despondent? Yes. But he did not choose to do anything about it. He chose to be himself, and that was his way. We have been given the task of Atmano Mokshatam and Jagat Hitaya both. So we have to fulfill both the duties. That is why we are working. But the moment you have the desire of this to do good to others, then you have to put efforts. Then your body has to go through whatever it has to go through, mind has to go through. As long as you're not getting emotional about it, you can still remain steady and your ship will still continue. Because the moment you become emotional, there will be a storm and ship will sink. When you are not emotional about it, good winds are there. Those good winds are taking us forward in our mission. So that is the idea, that your mind is the reason. That is why manayeva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayaho. Mind is the reason for one's bondage or liberation. Then this is the last sloka of this chapter, 2.25. It is on 190 page. It says, Mayananta maham bodho ashcharyam jiva vichayaha udyanti gnananti khelanti pravishanti swabhavataha. Again the same wave and the ocean idea. How wondrous are the waves of this ocean. Jiva Vichaya. What are these waves? Jivas are the waves. One person is born, one person is dying, another person is great, another person is small, another person is very intelligent, another person is dull. Like this, so many types of waves are playing on this ocean of consciousness. Remember, his ocean is not just his own consciousness. Everybody's collective consciousness is what he calls as ocean. And in that ocean, so many people's jivas are coming and going. Children are born, elderly are dying, somebody is sick, somebody is healthy, somebody is rich, poor. All kinds of waves of all sizes and shapes are playing on this ocean of consciousness. How beautifully, and he says how wonderful it is. He is bewildered by this very understanding now. He is wonderstruck that, oh, all this birth and death and good and bad and ugly and beautiful and rich and poor is all waves playing on this ocean of consciousness. They are all same. They look different, but momentarily they look different. Next moment they all become one with the ocean, they become same. How wonderful. That very thought itself is so amazing that he is enjoying this discovery, this understanding itself. And what he says, what are these waves doing? Udyanti, they rise. Then what they do? Gnananti, they collide with each other, they clash. Khelanti, they play. Pravishanti, they merge back in the ocean, they enter the ocean back. Swabhavataha, by their very nature. That is the nature of the waves. That they rise and they fall. That is the nature of the waves. There are different kinds. They play, they clash. People fight. There are wars happening. There are peace happening. There are people doing nice things. There are people not doing nice things. But all these are waves on the consciousness. Beyond their good, bad, ugly things, they are made of same consciousness. A murderer or a thief or a criminal who is doing the wrong thing also is able to do because of the consciousness that he has. Of course, his use is wrong. But his consciousness only enables that person also to achieve what they achieve, right? It's nothing other than that. This discovery is making him so feel, in that wonderment he's saying, how wonderful is this whole thing going on around me. I just realized he might have punished a criminal and he would have rewarded let's say a pandit. Now he says, pandit was also a wave and the criminal also was a wave on the ocean of consciousness. They look different, they behave differently. But then at the end, they were also the same consciousness. They were not different. This is what is Samadarshinaha. This is what is equal vision of the Pandita, of the great Gyanis. They can see equality. They will still do what they need to do with you, but they are not doing it with any emotions in it. They're doing it for the sake of doing it. Why? Somebody makes a mischief in the class. Now the teacher has to take some action. If he doesn't take the action, he's setting a wrong example. He's almost normalizing such a behavior. But the teacher is doing that not with hatred. Teacher is doing with only concern for the students' welfare and the welfare of the class. See, emotions, and that is what those waves which are stormy should not happen inside you. Waves will happen, there is no choice. Thoughts will come, waves will happen, and people will behave differently because their minds are different, driven by different winds. But how does a Jnani look at the whole thing? Beyond the size, shapes, and types of waves, he sees the oneness of it all. Of it all. That is the beauty. The Jnani also is a wave also. Jnani being in the world is also a wave, but he identifies himself with the water of the ocean and not with the wave. He says, yes, I also exist amongst you, just like you. I also have a body, mind, and everything else that is needed to perform the things in the world. But all the time I'm aware, I'm conscious of the fact that I am the ocean. And wave is a temporary existence which will only stay so long. Holding on to a wave saying it should remain forever is foolishness. Somebody who sits by the ocean and watches. I sit in Fiji, our ashram is there. Outside there is a beautiful sea. I had nothing you have to do. Just sit there and watch the waves up and down, up and down. You will go into a state of bliss. Because you will think like Janaka. This whole universe is consciousness, the sea. And these waves are coming and going. And they're so playful sometimes. Looks like they're jumping and coming, giggling and laughing and singing to themselves and coming. It feels like that. Sometimes when the moon is very strong and the high tide comes, looks like they're all yelling and fighting and arguing and coming towards the beach. You feel like that because they're so aggressive. They're coming with great gusto and then they're throwing all the garbage at our ashram beach and then they go back. And in the morning everything is so pleasant, as if they're all smiling, singing, humming and playing and coming. So that is the imagination of Janaka. That singing, playing, humming and being sweet and nice is also an imagination. And those heavy, aggressive, angry, frustrated, argumentative, fighting waves also is imagination. Both are made of the same water. So all kinds of people in the world are made of the same consciousness is Janaka's conclusion. It is nothing other than that. So what is there? That is why Sarvam Brahmamayam. What is there to achieve here? What is there not to achieve here? Let it be as it goes on. But if there is a divine will, you must do service, you must raise an institution, you must help people, then you should do. If the divine will say stay quiet, calm in your ashram, simply stay silent, be in a Mauna Samadhi, so be it. Who is right, who is wrong? That is what the Sadashiv Brahma does. Who is right here, who is wrong here? From the consciousness point of view, everything is water. There is no wrong, right. From the ultimate, that is why Sukha, Dukkha, Labha, Labha, Jaya, Ajayo doesn't exist. A yogi will be able to stay in that state. That is why Krishna tells Arjuna, Sukha dukkha samay kritva, labha alabha jaya ajayo, tato yuddhaya yujyasva, naivam papam vapsyasi. He says Sukha dukkha, labha alabha means gain, losses. Treat that all as equal. Tasmat yogat yujyasva. After having become a yogi, fight the battle, he says. Before becoming a yogi, if you fight the battle, the good and bad of it will stick to you. But with this understanding, if you fight the battle, naivam papam avapsyasi, no sin will come to you. It means no merit also will come to you for this. No reactions will come to you. No consequences will come to you. Why? You are not associating yourself with this whole idea of doing and enjoying, karta and bhokta. You are the consciousness on which everything is happening. Yet you go and fight the war nevertheless. Why? Because you are also one of the waves. While you are the ocean, you are also one of the waves which is now formed to do this Dharma Yuddha of Kurukshetra. So do your part and be done and gone. You get my point? That is a simple thought process. This thought process is very redeeming. Then you don't get attached to anything in the world. It's like getting attached to a particular wave and saying this wave should never die. This wave should ever remain on the ocean. It should ever remain permanently on the ocean. How is it possible, you would say? That asking itself is a duragraha, they say, the wrong ask. It is not right. This is what is being said. So all the things are happening in the world as per whatever has been destined or divinely designed. And one need not be too insistent upon anything. Just be free. As it comes, take it as it comes. And deal with it. Don't be too demanding of things. That is what it's being says. The Jnani who realizes that all this is done by the guna. So the guna is the concept in our scriptures. We have Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and Satoguna. Accordingly, we behave. Satoguna people are always quiet, nice, and calm and spiritual. Rajoguna is always aggressive, active, cannot sit quiet. Other Tamogunas are there. They don't care what happens in the world. They are in their own world. People behave differently because of gunas. That's what Krishna also says. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. Ahankara vimuda atma kartaham iti manyate. The fool, arrogant fool thinks I am doing this. I means I have control over it. I can do it. Like the ocean thinks I have control over the waves. No, it doesn't have any control. Winds have the control though. And winds are these gunas, which are there, the thoughts of the mind of several lifetimes of behavior and habits. These are controlling our actions. And we think we are controlling our actions. No, these gunas in us are controlling our actions. And where are the gunas lying? In our mind. So purification of mind means purification of gunas. Purification of guna means purification of your actions. Purification of action means the realization of the self. So getting our gunas to purify, replace tamoguna with rajas, rajoguna with sattva. That is how one improves in life. And finally, all the three can be discarded. You become the consciousness. So when people are lazy, I recommend action. But they are too active. They are not able to sit in one place and think and listen to one thing. I tell you, cut down your actions and try to be a little calm in your life. Too much of action is no good. No, but I am doing seva only. I told I don't need you to do seva now. Just sit down and listen to what I am saying. You need to control your rajoguna. Different people are given different medicine according to their need. And there is one more nice shloka from Bhagavad Gita. Tattvavittu mahabaho guna karma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartanta iti matva na sajjate. So how does the jnani behave when he knows everybody is driven by their own gunas? There is little he can do. He cannot tell this person behave like this. Even if he tells, he won't behave. So what does he do? Jnani. Jnani realizes guna guneshu vartante. These gunas are the reason for whatever is happening and whatever is being done. And what happened? Iti matva na sajjate. The jnani does not get disturbed by this. He knows, poor people, all these are minds and which are driven by their gunas. That's why all the storm in the sea, all the chaos in the society is because they're driven by their guna. They're rajasic. They're selfish. Realize that all this is being done by the winds of the mind, which are nothing but the gunas. When can you have good winds? When you have good gunas in people. That's why education is important, service is important, all these activities are important to realize this, that everything is run because of gunas and you should be not too attached. And also it will help you not to get attached with forms and names. Winds cause waves. You cannot insist that wave remains forever. Like that this is my child, this is my father, this is my mother, my friend, you cannot insist that they will remain with you forever. It is not possible. They will come and go. And this time they have come to you, next time they will go to somebody else. These relationships are also to be treated only so much with so much of interest and emotion, not beyond that.